Yes, guys, it is ladder predictor time. I finally got around to doing this and I've been looking for the sauciest way to reveal it. So what I'm going to do, I think this is the best way to do it, is kind of go through alphabetical order and just drop the teams into the position that I have them. Now, there's nothing too scientific about this, and I haven't even gone through and really, to be honest, like checked the hardness of the fixture. So you can probably see this is more of a, in terms of where I see the team's list and the quality inside the list as far as where I'm putting them on the ladder. So again, keep that in mind throughout the video, and we'll kick things off right away, starting with the Adelaide Crows, who I've already talked about in different videos across, other people's platforms. I did a video with Druzy the other day, and I had Adelaide as a big bolter this season. I just think there is so much quality in the front half of the ground for the Crows. And ultimately, if you've got quality in the front half of the ground, you're going to be able to score. Riley Thilthorpe, Tex Walker, although he is aging, is still a really good target in front of the ball. And then they've got Darcy Fogarty as that sort of hybridy type forward. They've got plenty of quality at ground level with the likes of Rankin, Rochelle. They've got players like Pedler that can come in. And now getting Alex Neil-Bullen, who's that sort of genuine high half forward that can get up to stoppage, has really good mobility as well. And I think their defense is underrated when you look at the likes of Murray and Worrell, who he's a player I've talked about considerably across this preseason. Looks like he's taken another step. He looks a bit bigger, a bit stronger. Looks like he can bring a little bit to the intercept game because that was a problem for the Crows in 2024. And then the midfield, it's going to be interesting how they kind of stack everything up. They've got Cumming, who could either play as a sort of intercepting halfback or he could play up on the wing. But then you've got, what are you going to do with Jordan Dawson? Could you flick him behind the ball? They've got a lot of nice pieces in there that they can sort of move around. You can throw Rankin in there if you need to. Peatlings come in and can play that defensive role. And then you've got those Matt Crouch types as well, who's really good at getting his hands on the ball from a Riley O'Brien hit out. So I've got the Crows in at 7th on the ladder. Now, that might seem a little bit harsh given everything that I've just said about them, but we have to remember that they haven't actually made finals under Matthew Nicks yet. So I still think there's going to be some learnings and maybe some near misses for them doing anything more meaningful than that, but I think they'll be somewhere between that 5 to 8 mark. The Brisbane Lions are stacked for talent all over the ground, and they're probably, for me, one of the best teams at just going through different motions of the game. And what I mean by that is the speed that they put on the ball. Sometimes they play really slow and they control the footy. Their kicking skills off halfback are absolutely elite with Dane Zorko. Darcy Wilmot back there, I think, is still an emerging player, but someone that has a lot of quality. And then you've got even a Kitty Coleman to come back into that side as well. So many good players back there with foot skills. They just can change the pace of the game, and at 1 minute they lure you into a bit of a sense of security with the fact that they're moving the ball slowly, and then they can just hit you quickly. They can kill you in a lot of different ways, and now that they've got this premiership in their locker, I think they're even going to be a more formidable team. They'll have a little bit more trust in themselves and a little bit more confidence when they come up in those big games, given that they've got the flag under their belt. This is a team that's now been successful for 4, 5, 6 seasons under Chris Fagan. They've been getting to prelim finals and semi-finals and whatnot. So they're going to be brilliant this season. They're going to be almost impossible to beat at the Gabba. I have the Lions on top of the ladder as my minor premier. The Blues have been coming for that top 4 for the last couple of years, but haven't been able to crack the code. And I've got some bad news for Blues fans for myself. I just don't think they're going to continue on this trajectory. I think they've got injuries to key players. I think their game style and the way that they built this team is a little bit unsustainable as well. When you look at the fact that it's such a stoppage-heavy game in the midfield with Cripps and Hewitt and Walsh and Chera, for me, they still don't have that sort of game-breaking forward of centre type midfielder as well. I mean, Cripps sort of manufactures that with the way that he plays. He has so much strength and he pushes forward and does kick goals, but they don't have that, I don't know, like prototypical Dustin Martin, Isaac Heaney, Christian Petrarca type player. Jacob Wiedering's an amazing defender. I think he's the best fullback in the competition. So from a spine point of view, with having Mackay and Curnow in the front, Cripps in the middle, Wietering at the back, but I just fear for those players around Wietering in the back half of the ground. Can they move the ball? Can they score from the back half when they need to? Can they control games when they need to? I'm not so sure. I also worry a little bit about their small forwards. Are they going to be good enough? We're really waiting for a breakout from probably someone like an Ashton Moyer for for this to get really good for Carlton. So I've got the Blues actually dropping out of the 8 here, and I've got them finishing in 12th. The Pies are super interesting. Everyone's talking about the aging list and the potential injuries to those players that hasn't even happened yet. But I love what they've done over the offseason. I think the inclusions that they've made are a sign of the sort of football that they're going to want to play as well. And some of the moves in the preseason are really telling. Dan Houston across halfback, Josh Dacos across halfback are going to be massive for the Pies to firstly, like I've been saying about some of the other teams, to be able to control the game from the back half when they need to be able to play tempo football and move the ball fast, and to be able to increase those scores, which really dropped away for them in 2024 from the D50. So they're going to be massive there. If Reef McInnes can sort of assert himself and be this really good lockdown defender, what we've seen of him in the preseason, all the signs point to that, but you never really know until he plays in the full season. He can really loosen up Darcy Moore to be able to play that intercepting role that he did in 2023. And then I think when you've got a midfield with this much quality in it, with Nick Dacos, with Jordan De Goey, with Harry Perryman, who they've brought in as well, it's a formidable side in the middle part of the ground. They've got great wingers in Crisp and Sidebottom and Pendlebury to run through there. And they're going to come into the midfield as well. And they're really experienced players that can stand up in big games. Yes, the key position forwards with Membry, Mychek and McStay, there's probably still some question marks about their durability, their ability to just be able to play a lot of games in a row. And the two little small forwards down there are absolutely deadly. Bobby Hill and Jamie Elliott, what they can do is really exciting with plenty of entries. So bullish on the Pies, and I think they just sneak into the top 8, finishing in 8th place. The Bombers are next, and I've absolutely loved what they've been doing this preseason. The improvements that they've made to the squad are there for everybody to see, but will it translate on field in 2025? I think they've improved the forward line massively, bringing in Caddy and Kako in recent drafts. But I still think the question is, if they're the two players that are making you, excelling you to those heights of making finals or winning a final like all Essendon fans really, really want, it's probably a little bit too soon for them to do anything meaningfully. And therefore, I have the Bombers still finishing in 14th position in 2025. The Dockers are absolutely ready to go, and they play half of their games at home, which means they're going to bank a lot of wins early on in the season. And they play that stoppage-heavy game that just really is sustainable throughout a season. I'm still not sure if it holds up in big finals, in big moments, in big matches, and that's probably been the question mark around the Dockers under Justin Longmuir. But I think it's going to bank them enough wins, particularly when they play teams at home. That midfield of Sarong, Brayshaw, Hayden Young, that's going to beat up on teams at times. They've got two really good forwards in a Miss and Tracy, and a solid defence to go with that. I think they struggle a little bit with ball movement at times. But as I said, enough wins are going to be banked here, and I've got the Dockers finishing in 3rd place. The Cats are a little bit of a similar one to the Dockers in that they're going to play a lot of games down at GMHBA, and they're going to win a lot of those games. They're a pretty good team on the road. They're a very experienced list. They're a strong club that always plays in finals. I still see plenty of quality in the way that they do things. I think the emergence of Max Holmes is sort of reinvigorated that midfield. It gives them the ability to be able to play a Patrick Dangerfield in the forward line, which I think is really, really great for them. He's a powerful player down there, still a difficult one-on-one matchup. You've got Jeremy Cameron, probably still the best forward in the game. And what they do with their high half forwards is absolutely ridiculous, with players like Manor coming up to stoppage. They get Brian Myers up to stoppage. They kick darts inside forward 50. Dempsey running the wings creates overloads as well. And we know their defense has always been really, really strong. So for me, the Cats are going to make the top 4. They're going to sneak into 4th position. The Gold Coast Suns, surely it's time for them to play some finals football. They've got a great midfield with Noah Anderson, Matty Rao. They've still got Tuke Miller kicking around there. Sam Flanders is going to go into the midfield. They've recruited Dan Rioli. They've got a lot of talented young players, but we still haven't seen this team be able to control games, control those big moments, and go away on the road and have some big wins. And I think until we actually see that, it's really hard to rank them in the top part of the ladder. I think the talent's definitely there. But I still look in the forward half of the ground. You've got Ben King, who's a good key position forward at the moment, but probably nothing more than that. You've got Jed Walter, who's going to be an absolute star, but he hasn't really hit the heights, and he's still just a young player. You can't really put that pressure on him. I think there's still some holes in the forward line. Jake Rogers, Leo Lombard, they really assist that. But again, they're very young players, second year and first year players. So I still think they have some immaturity in their game and inability to be able to win those big games, to be able to propel them to play finals. And there's just so many teams, quality teams, just sniffing around for one of those finals places. So I can't have the Gold Coast Suns in there. I've got them finishing just outside the 8 in 10th position. The GWS Giants, one of my favourite teams to watch play football. The way that they move the ball off half-back, the way that they position Lockie Whitfield to get a lot of touches there, bring the ball out of defence. They use their wingers, they use their high half forwards. Brent Daniels is an absolute star in that position as well. They've really just got stars all over the park. Sam Taylor behind the ball is an absolute gun. They've got Himmelberg back there and Buckley, a stacked defence, Iden even as well. They've just got defenders coming out of their ears, ball movers. Inside midfielders, when Tom Green gets back into the team, they're going to be pretty much unbeatable alongside Finn Callahan, who's a star of the future as well. They've got Toby Bedford, who I think is an unbelievably underrated player and is a really good yin and yang alongside Green and Finn Callahan. He's got fast feet, gets out of the stoppage, plays a little bit as that high half forward as well. They've got experienced players like Cornelio, Kelly, Toby Green. They've got Jesse Hogan, who's one of the best key position forwards in the competition. And they have so many quality high half forwards, small forwards that are just going to run amok this season. I've got the Giants in 2nd position. The Hawks, the future for the Hawks is incredibly bright. Will they have a little bit of a slide that people are talking about? I don't think they will. I still have them in the top 8, but they are narrowly missing the top 4. I've got them in 5th position. And the reason that I've got them in 5th position is I think they've brought in some defenders that are really going to help them win the ball back. We know that they like to move the ball really quickly into those forwards like Nick Watson and Dylan Moore, Jack Ginnivan, create chaos in the forward half of the ground. I think potentially where they lack is just a bit of a focal point. Mabiel Chol, is he actually an A-grade forward? Does he compete well enough in the air? I think Kal Shadir's coming along really, really well, but I think he's picked up an injury in the preseason as well, so that's going to be problematic for them. Back half's really good. The midfield's great with Newcomb, Will Day, Warple. If Will Day can play at least 20 games in this season, it's a massive improvement on last year. D'Ambrosio off a wing is one of the better players in that position as well. So really the main question mark is around a key position forward, and I expect in the next couple of years the Hawks are going to go after that player anyway, but I've got them finishing 5th. A lot of people have the D's getting a bit of a bump in 2025, but I don't see it as much. I still think there's some holes in that team. They've got a pretty good spine. Stephen May, Jake Lever, Christian Petrarca, Clayton Oliver through the midfield. But it's up forward where things really start to go. They're still relying on a Jacob Van Rooyen. Bailey Fritsch is a gun as that kind of 3rd key position player, but is someone like an Aiden Johnson really going to be able to step up into this team and compete as a number 1 or a number 2 key position forward? I'm not too sure. I think, outside of an Ed Langdon, the wings are a little bit weak, and they've lost one of the best high half forwards in the competition in Alex Neil-Bullen. I still think they lack movement off the back half of the ground, although Caleb Windsor going to halfback could fix that up a little bit, and I think that's a nice experiment for them to have. But players, some of their key players, their experienced players, Christian Salem and Spargo and these sorts of players have sort of fallen off a little bit. I'm not really sure where they're at. And I see overall, unless Christian Petrarca and Clayton Oliver sort of get back to 2022, 2023 form, I still see them being certainly in that bottom 8 of the competition and potentially that sort of bottom 6. So I have the D's in 13th position. And next up is my Kangaroos. Now, I do see a little bit of a bump for the Kangaroos as far as wins and losses goes, but I still think we're a very immature side when it comes to handling a game. Best exemplified in that game against West Coast. We absolutely played them off the park, but we just absolutely have no idea how to win a game, how to control a game. We've got talented players in the midfield, LDU, Sheasel, McKercher. These guys are unbelievable players, but they still don't know how to win yet. Some of these guys have barely won a match in their entire career just with how bad North have been over multiple seasons. So I think it's hard to see them just stepping up this season and bumping like a successful club like Hawthorn who have seen premierships in the last 5 to 10 years. North aren't going to be able to do that, and I think it's going to be a lot slower. I think we're going to compete better with teams. We're going to have periods of games where we play teams off the park in 2025, and there will be some big wins. I think there'll be more wins than last year, but I still want to keep the expectations a little bit low, and I have my Kangaroos finishing in 16th position. I got the Power next on my list, and I absolutely love their midfield. Rosie, Butters, Horn-Francis. You probably couldn't get a better midfield than that. But the back line stinks. Zerk Thatcher, Asaba Radigalia, and Aaliyah as a back three of your key position defenders is just not good enough for me. I think they've overachieved over the last couple of years. They finished second last year. Can you believe it? And I just see a natural decline here. I think the decision to do the handover thing with Ken Hinckley and Josh Carr is a little bit of a mistake. It just gives players a bit of an out. And I could see this going pear-shaped mid-season, making the change a little bit earlier. And I've got the Power finishing in 11th position ultimately. I think the midfield gets them out and gets them a few extra wins than they probably would with the talent, how it's dispersed elsewhere. I think the forward line's got a lot of upside this season. Bringing in Jack Lukosius, Joe Berry as a rookie is going to be a real headache down there for opposition teams. But overall, I see a decline for Port Adelaide and then maybe a quick bounce up in the next couple of years. Richmond. Oh dear. This could be a really, really dark season for the Tigers. It was pretty bad last year. It was pretty bad the year before. And we haven't even really seen rock bottom here with the amount of young under 21s that they're going to be bringing into this team. I think we've seen in the preseason so far that they're going to be really, really easy to score against. The midfield's going to be sluggish. It's going to be slow. It's not going to be able to compete with the best teams in the competition. That's going to change in 3, 4, 5 years' time. But this season could be really difficult and it could be a hard watch for fans. And I have the Tigers in last position. The Saints, I've been sticking up for the Saints over the last few weeks on different podcasts. And then I sort of went to do this exercise and I'm like, they kind of are just the bottom 4 team, aren't they? They aren't going to be able to, with the midfield that they have with Jack Steele, Jack McRae, and then whichever young player is kind of going to get that third spot. Is it going to be Garcia? Is it going to be Boxall? Philippou, when he gets back, is a big weapon and an A-grade talent for me. But I think they've got too many injuries. Max King's going to be out of the team. Just too many holes. Even Mitch Owens, we're not sure how bad that injury is. I think maybe he will be back earlier in the season rather than later. The back line is amazing and their outside talent, Wanganeen Miller, a Sinclair, these sorts of players, they're going to be able to win games for them. But I don't think they're going to be able to build a sustainable enough brand because they're going to get beaten in that midfield section too often. I have the Saints in 15th position, mainly because I think they're still better than Richmond, West Coast, and North. Sydney's biggest issue is going to be coming back from that appalling grand final appearance. That's 2 in 3 years that they've suffered now, and I think that's going to be difficult for them mentally. They've also got a new coach. I think the new coach factor probably helps them a little bit and just kind of refreshes them a bit, the way that they're going to play and those sorts of things. But there is going to have to be some sort of a transition period where they lose a couple of games. So they pretty much had to come down from finishing first last year. There's still a lot of talent on that team, particularly from a midfield perspective. Key position forwards, I'm a little bit worried about. Key position defenders, I'm a little bit worried about. Goulden's injury really hurts them on the outside as well, which means I think they could drop some games in the front half of the year. Ultimately, there's enough quality to make finals, and I have them finishing 6th overall. West Coast, and I've kind of showed my hand with this one, mentioning them off the top when I was talking about St Kilda. I think the Eagles are still going to be a really poor side. They've brought in Graham. They've brought in Baker to help things out. Yo's still injury prone though, and you're probably going to lose him for a lot of the season this year. The young talent, they've got some really, really big players that are coming through. Obviously, Harley Reid tops that. Bo Allen. They've got Hewitt and Jinby. There could be improvement there, but ultimately they're still a really, really young side. And there's a lot of the older players, the plus 26 players in there, just don't have enough quality to propel this side forward. And I still think they should be looking to go to the draft over the next couple of seasons to really improve the talent that they have on this list, or go after a big fish like Chad Warner. I have the Eagles second bottom in 17th. And last but not least is the Western Bulldogs, who I recently on a video said that they could potentially make the top 8 or the top 4. I can't even remember exactly what I said. I think this team is stacked, full of talent, and they have a weapon like Sam Darcy in the forward half of the ground that's going to be a nightmare for defenders to play on. Included in that, you've got Aaron Norton, you've got Cody Waitman. But half of the players that I'm talking about here aren't even going to be playing at the beginning of the season. So I think I got a little bit too excited about the Dogs. They've got Bontempelli out, they've got Waitman out, they've got Ed Richards out that I know of. Ugle-Hagen's going to be out of the side, you'd think indefinitely based on the reports and things like that about him. So The Dogs can't make the finals for me. At their absolute best, with the talent that they have, they should be in the top 8. They probably should be in the top 4, given the talent level. I do like what Luke Beveridge has done from a sort of recycling point of view, how he's got rid of these guys like McRae and Daniel. Not so much Bailey Smith. I think he still could have contributed, obviously, but some of those older, less athletic players, he's replaced, someone like a Jack McRae with Ed Richards, who's got a little bit more dynamism in his game. He's replaced Caleb Daniel with a Joel Frazier, a younger, more athletic player as well off halfback to give them a bit more bite. So I like what they're doing essentially, but I still don't think this is going to be their year, and they'll probably drop too many games at the front half. So I've got the Dogs finishing in 9th. So that is a wrap for my ladder predictor, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did I get any of those horribly wrong? Once again, I did say off the top that I didn't do this from like a going through the ladder predictor and doing each game or anything like that. It was pretty much just where I see the teams based on their list, with putting a few things like injuries and that sort of thing and form in that as well. So that's a wrap for this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.